Okay, hi. Good evening, everyone. Okay, just let me know if I'm audible. Just let me know if I'm audible. Okay, and there is no disturbance, right? Voice is clear and loud. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, I guess it's time to start. I hope my screen is visible and we are good to start now. Okay. Yeah, so uh, we'll see about Node.js sessions, but I'll definitely think about it. Okay, here we are. So now we are going to go and start. Okay. Okay, so what's in the agenda today? Okay, so let me start sharing a whiteboard. Okay, here we go, guys. So we have the whiteboard on the screen, and now what we want to do is we would like to talk about the today's agenda. Okay, so what we are going to go and see today, we are going to go and understand something like yesterday we tried to understand SPA versus MPA concept and some basics about the basics about JavaScript objects. So today what we are going to go and understand we'll be understanding something which is called as okay, maybe creating a React project, or okay, our first React application. Then we'll plan to understand a couple of templates. There's a template which is called as CRA, Create React Application, CRA template. And there is one more that we have, which is called as React Wheat. Okay, so Wheat as a template. We'll try to understand Wheat template. Then we'll also plan to understand today something which is called as understand structure of the React project, of React application. Then we'll also plan to understand something that is class component concept. Okay, and then we'll plan to understand something which is function component concept, function or functional component. Okay, so these are the basic things we need to see, and if time permits we will get into the concept of state, a concept of life cycle of class component. Okay, so we can just say maybe state, maybe something which is called as life cycle of class component. So life cycle methods, I should say, life cycle methods. So this is the overall agenda, okay, that we need to focus today on. So let's see. So yesterday we tried to create an application which is very from the scratch. Okay, that we tried to create some HTML page. We tried to write down some piece of JavaScript code, and then we just tried to keep on loading certain content into the what you call div with the ID equal to root. Okay, and programmatically we kept on adding UI into the div, and then we minified, then we created separate JavaScript files, then we clubbed the JavaScript file, then we minified the files, and then we tried to understand some basics about JavaScript objects. Now the thing is, when you say we need to create a React application, so what exactly a React application offers? So there is a like I said, React is a library, and that React library basically helps us do something which is like a simple SPA application. It helps us create. It helps us create a UI conditionally and then put it inside some sort of div on a screen. And then if at all you are looking, like I said, if you are looking for navigation, if you are looking for safety security, if you are looking for data context management, then you will have to eventually go for something that is various libraries which you can download, optionally. And wherein I said, in case of Angular, Angular is a more of a framework, and that basically is heavy in size, because whether you like it or not, Angular will give you many things. Okay, that's the reason Angular is bulky in size compared to React, which is just a lightweight thing. So how do I create a React application? How do I get a base project ready? Which means, can we have a boilerplate template specifically for creating a React application? I really don't want to create everything from the scratch. So as a developer, can somebody offer me some sort of structure in place kind of a project, even if it's a hello world project? Okay. So for that purpose, let us plan to understand what are options available. So we are going to understand first the CRA template, and then later on we'll plan to understand the Wheat template. Okay. So I'm just going to go and export, and let me start now sharing the screen. Here we go. So how do we start creating a React application? So we have two different templates, like a hello world application. Two templates are there. So somebody can offer me maybe a hello world project for React. So let's say this is day 3. Okay, under day 3, what we can do is we'll plan to create maybe CRA template based maybe application. Okay, when you need a CRA template, now CRA is actually obsolete, which means there are no version maintenance which basically happened in recent time. with respect to CRA, which means no new versions basically were given with CRA. CRA means create React application template. Okay, where do I find that? So if you just search about it, okay, if I just go to um, Chrome and if I just search about CRA or create React app, okay, create React app. So what do you see here? There is a create React app kind of a template. A site basically comes up over here. So I can just click over here and have a look. So a simple application, which is a kind of a hello world application, which will be given to us. And to get a simple hello world application which is created, there's a template in place. The template name is create React app. Now, if you need this create React app, so what you are supposed to do is you are supposed to install this first of all on your machine. To do the installation, what you need is you need to download this create React app template from the npmjs.com. Okay, so like I said, people like you and me as a contributor, there is a too much of, I mean, huge community available. Okay, there is a huge community available, and that huge community is basically what offers us something which is called as ready-made projects, rather ready-made templates, ready-made libraries, ready-made helper files. Where are those things available? So there is a site called npmjs.com or repo called npmjs.com, and then this is something which is a kind of a community which can offer us JavaScript framework based, what you call it as helper files and packages and templates and whatnot. Okay, so in case you search over here something which is called as create dash react dash app, if you search here, okay, look at this, huh? You can see it here. The last version which was published, it was 9 months ago, which is definitely more amount of time considering the kind of a race and kind of a market we are in. So create React app is literally not maintained for longer duration, it means. And what do you see over here? In case you click on get started, okay, a thing over here, it can take you to some sort of a community. If you click on something which is called as let's click on getting started over here, okay, and this takes you to the same website which basically we saw. And then what it tells you that you can download this template on your machine with the help of npm command. How do I get this particular thing? If I go back, this can tell you can grab this template by saying npm install create React app. How do I run npm command on my machine? Okay, if your machine is a very fresh machine, just Windows available, just Linux available, so this npm command first of all will not work on your machine. So you can install npm separately, okay, or the another option that you have, the easiest option. See, installing npm separately and configuring is more difficult than doing installation of Node.js. If you are using Windows as an operating system, or even if you are using Unix as an operating system, you will eventually find out it's super easy. You can go to download section of Node and then you can see it yourself. Okay, you can see it yourself that when you install Node.js, okay, by simply downloading it as an installer, when you install Node.js on your machine, you can say download installer, next, finish, and then everything will be installed. But the important part to understand is when you download and install this, it will install node as in the node.js packages, node as an executable application, but along with that it will also install npm, as you can see, which means downloading npm separately and then configuring the npm versus something like installing npm via installation of a node is super easy. Okay, and that's the reason suggestion is install node. It will anyway help us later on when we'll plan node.js sessions. So the thing is, after the next finish, what exactly do we need on the machine? So you can very well quickly check. Okay, go to command prompt. Okay, go to command prompt and you can check. See, after installation of node, you can simply check if node is installed or not. Using what? You can just say node dash v, and this will tell you which version of a node is there on your machine. Whichever you download, whichever is latest, that version is something which is showcased to you. Okay, over here. Next, but what I said, after the installation of Node, npm is also installed along with it. So how do I check if npm command, npm means Node Package Manager. So Node Package Manager is a tool, is a command with which we can download required packages from npmjs.com, or for that matter, repository. So, or specified repository. How do I know if npm is installed on my machine or not? So what you can do, you can say npm-v, and this will tell you what is the version of npm that is installed. And since I can see now npm-v gives me a version, which means I can be relaxed now, because I know now I have npm installed on my machine. So there is nothing to worry about in terms of what you call it as npm. So I already have npm installed on my machine. Okay, now just note down these steps. Okay, so if we note down the steps, first of all, okay, install node, okay, on machine. This is the step number one. You can very well download from a reference link. I'm just going to go and copy the node reference link, okay, over here. Next, okay, this will also install something which is called as npm, okay, that is Node Package Manager, okay, Node Package Manager. And what happens over here is, if this installs npm as well, how do you check if it is installed? You can check, so you can check node installation, okay, using command prompt, okay, via something like a command will be there, something like node dash v, okay, command. And then the next thing is, you can also check, copy paste, you can also check the node installation. So you can also check npm installation using a command npm-v. And then both the commands basically give you, both commands give you the version, okay, installed, version number installed, installed, okay. And then if the version appears, if versions are given, shown, means you have now node and what you call it as npm installed, okay. So you already have node and npm installed. That's what it means, okay. Now let's try to understand the next fact. How do I use this npm command? Because what is the first thing I need on my machine? I need a project template, create React app template. And then you saw it over here, a create React app template available on this repository npmjs.com. This can only be downloaded with the command called as npm install create React app. Okay, so I'm just going to go and copy this command and put it over here. Okay, I already have CRA installed, by the way, but then for the sake of demonstration, for the sake of understanding that how CRA is used, I'm just going to go and say npm install create React app. So when you say npm install create React app, what you are going to go and grab is, you are going to go and get a template, a project template, which means literally like a hello world kind of a project, maybe in a what you call it as compressed format, will be given to you on your machine. So you're just going to go and grab the what you call it as minified version of a create React app, is something which will be there on your machine. Let's see. Okay, so what this does is, this brings on my machine the create React app template. Okay, great, done. There are some vulnerabilities since the version is no more maintained. Okay, and now we have in the folder, if you look at, okay, literally you will find out there is nothing as of now under this command. So I already have a template available right now on my machine. How do I start using this template? So the very first thing is, you will have to, it's literally like somebody has given you a hello world application which is ready made, and you just want to make a copy of it and name it as your another application. Okay, it's literally like that. So after doing this, what was the command that we used? The command that we used is Okay, grab a template, get a template for a React application. Maybe I should say CRA template. I should say create React app template for creating a React application. Okay, from something like npmjs.com. Okay, this was npmjs.com, right? Yeah, npmjs.com. And then using a command, that would be using a command, that is this command npm install I for install create react app. So what you did is you downloaded npm and now you are using npm to grab the template. Okay, next thing guys, next thing is now I would like to use this create react app which is downloaded, and I would like to use this to set up a new project, which means it's literally like somebody has given me some sort of basic application. I'm literally going to go and replicate, extract, and create a new application out of it. So for that purpose, what we'll do over here, we'll use npx extract. So npx node package manager npm, just like that, we are going to go and extract now that node package, and we are going to go and say extract a package, that is create react app, and please create a new react application. Let us name this as demo. Okay, so let us extract this template which we downloaded and let us create a new project, name it as demo. And now when I say demo create, it will just go and extract the project. It will install all the dependencies that the project has got. It will take time based on your network connectivity. Let's wait. It's downloading the CRA template. Sorry, it is extracting the CRA template and creating a demo application out of it. Which means just imagine somebody has already given you a project. You are just trying to make a copy of it, resolve all the dependencies that the project has, and you are trying to create a new project out of it, naming it as demo. Okay, that is what is happening behind the scene. So it will take some time, and you can see it over here under the what you call folder. If you go to, you can see demo project is under creation right now. Okay, so under demo you will find out there will be some sort of node modules, which means React project is not a single file. Your React project has a dependency on React.js, because that's the, you are creating a React SPA application. So if you are creating a SPA application, you will see to it that your SPA application has dependencies. Several React.js file has dependency on some other file. That some other file will have dependency on some more files. So all those files are supposed to be downloaded, okay, from various locations. So you are just going to go and get it from npmjs.com. So what is happening out here? It is going to go and take up some time in order to download the package. Let us wait for a few more minutes. I'm sure that it will be downloaded quickly. Okay, so it has added all the dependencies, as you can see. It has added packages. How many packages? So it has downloaded packages like 1325 packages in 2 minutes of time. Since people like you and me contribute to the community, so it also says ki, okay, some freelancers, some people have actually added some sort of packages which are like 271 packages, and they're looking for funding, which means literally more like a what you call it as, if you contribute, then definitely if you like this you can contribute, so that people can keep on adding good things over the repository. This is all free we're talking about. Now the thing is, after the installation is done, I mean after this entire project, this is the project, okay, React project. So how do I start this project? So the very first thing is, please go and navigate into demo folder. Okay. And then after you navigate into a demo folder, let's open this using VS Code. Let us open this using VS Code. It's a Hello World project. Okay. It's literally Hello World project. Okay. Now please look at this. So this project that we have created, okay, this project that we have created, plan to understand this. What's in there? There is some git ignore file, which means in case I wish to go and upload this over git, while uploading using git push command, So eventually what exactly or git commit, what I want to ignore is I want to ignore node module folder. I want to ignore certain things. That is what is conveyed over here. Right now, this file, I'm just going to go and keep a minimum structure of the application. So I'm going to delete this file. I'm not going to push this on GitHub. Okay. There is an MD file, which is basically simple steps conveyed. How do you run? What are the commands that you offer when you run the application? Those things are mentioned over here. We can just go ahead and delete this MD file. Pay attention now. Okay. I'm just trying to delete certain things so that I can just make the application look easy. Now the next, if you go to something which is called as SRC folder, if you go to SRC folder, there are several files that you see in the application. Okay. Right now we are just interested in some files which basically are important. So I'm just literally I'm going to go and delete some files over here just to make your understanding easy. And how do I do that? I'm just going to go and delete certain files over here. Okay, literally I'm deleting certain files. I'm going to keep only one file right now, that is index.js. I'm keeping only one file right now, that is index.js. Everything else I am about to delete. Okay, so look at this. Under the src folder, there is the index.js file, okay, which is here. Next, there is something in this index.js, okay, which I'm going to go and delete again. So I'll be deleting certain things, okay. I'll be deleting this, I'll be deleting this, this, and this, okay. I'll also be deleting some code below here. I'll also be deleting some code over here, okay. Have a look. This is the simple most index.js file. And what is in this index.js file? If you look at it, there is a public folder, and that public folder also has got several things. I'm just going to go and delete what I don't need right now. Delete everything else. Keep the index.js. And please pay attention. I'm going to go and make this file also simple for you so you understand this. Okay. Something that you will realize we already have seen. Delete what basically doesn't make any sense at this moment. Have a look now. And I can just call this as demo or SPA, single application, single page application, demo SPA. Have a look now, guys. This HTML page is something which is what we'll be calling. This HTML page is something which we will be calling whenever a client gives a call, whenever a server is called, ultimately we'll be calling this index.html page. And what is in this index.html page? This index.html page has one thing which is div id equal to root. And if you recall, we already have seen div id equal to root yesterday. So this was a place wherein the UI was getting added, if you recall. Line number 6 is the place which is what we used yesterday, where there was a dynamic UI which was getting added, like home UI, about UI, contact UI, and so and so. Somewhat similar things exist over here. Now hold on. Where is the rest of the JavaScript? Because if this HTML file is going to get called, I really wanted to see some sort of UI getting generated. So if you recall, there was an index HTML file, and I also created index.js towards the end yesterday. So if you see, this particular HTML file is what user will call, and this file internally will be shooting call to index.js. And look at the piece of code over here. What is the code written here? Document.getElement by id, just like what we did yesterday. We are grabbing a reference of root, which means that div. So we are getting a reference to that div, and what is mentioned over here? Root.render. If you recall, somewhat similar, something like inside this div id equal to root, let us push render, let us push some UI. And what is that UI? That UI part is something which we are supposed to convey over here. How do I convey what UI to produce? Please have a look. So what I'm going to do over here under src, let me create now home.js. Recall the code we did yesterday. And then what was the code over here? Function home Okay, and then return welcome to home page. This is the UI that we also constructed yesterday. So what I want is somebody should shoot a call to home and somebody should get this h1 welcome to home from home function itself. And now what happens over here is this home function that we have is supposed to be called inside index, which means we are going to go and say, please refer to div id equal to root and let us render the content given by home itself. The only thing that needs to come I mean, yet to come in picture is how do I refer this home inside index in the first place? How do I refer this home function inside the index itself? So starting from something which is called as ECMA 6, okay? Starting from ECMA 6, we keep on using, things like import export. What does that mean? ECMA 6 basically offered you a feature, which is basically if this particular, just imagine this home.js file has got hundreds of functions. Just imagine these home.js like file has got hundreds of functions. There is no point in referring the entire file into the application. Maybe I am interested only in specific functions. So in that case, what you can do, whichever functions you want, people should be like calling, whichever functions which you want to keep referred in the current file itself, which means I don't want anybody else to call. I want only this particular file should call. I'll keep those functions over here. And whichever functions I wish to, so that other people can call, other files can call, I can just go ahead and say, okay, export over here. Okay, export something which is called as function home. Now, when I'm exporting function home, in case I wish to use home over here, in case I wish to use home over here, what do? I would say import. So from the other file, I said export. In this particular file, since I want to use home, I would say import home from home. Import home from home. Okay. Now the thing is, I may have exported something else as well. I may have exported something like about as well, for example. So I may say, okay, I need home and I also need about over here. I may say I also need about. So whatever functions which you have exported, you can keep on saying in this curly bracket, okay, I need this, I need that. You may have exported something more as well, like export contact, for example. Okay, you may have exported contact as well, but I don't wish to refer that. If you don't wish to refer that, do not mention it over here. So what will happen? Out of multiple exported things, whatever you need, you can keep on importing it over here. But then, is there any way that if I am going to go and write down only home over here, and that's the default thing I want to export and expose, so what I would do, I need not go and even write down all of this. I can simply say export default. Okay, I may say export default, which means this is the by default function which I want to expose. And then I don't need even these curly brackets. So what I would say simply is I am in need of home. Okay, so I can just say, okay, I need home. So import home from home. So I would simply say I need home from home file. This is the path, relative path. So what is happening, guys, is this is no more in curly bracket because this is the by default thing which is exported from home file. Huh. If there are several other things, then definitely we would need to focus on those curly brackets and keep on importing what is basically expected by your application. Means you have to be choosy now and select whatever you need from the particular file. So only that much will be used in this current context. Now the question comes up, how do I start using home over here? See, had it been yesterday's code, I would have simply called over here home and round bracket, knowing home is a function. But what if home is a class? If home is a class, you would know that I would have created home class object and I would have simply called, some method out of it. But then, thing is, whether home is a function and whether home is a class. In case of React, you can use this syntax home and a tag like syntax. This syntax is actually called as JSX syntax. Okay, it's a JavaScript XML kind of a syntax. So what you see over here is root.render and home. Up what problem does this particular code solves? This code meaning, this code meaning, line number 5. This code means if I write a home like this, then I am free from the fact if home is a function, it will be called home round bracket. If home is a class and there is a UI returning method called render, what will happen? Somebody will create a home class object and call a render method, what we discussed yesterday. So you will eventually find out whether home is a function or whether home is a class. It really doesn't matter when you write a code like this. Because internally what will be handled, this will be replaced with home function call or home object creation and a render function call internally. So we are free from the fact and checking something like whether home is a function or home is a class. Really doesn't matter. So you and me will be using a simple JSX syntax to shoot a call to home. Now please try to understand what is going to happen here, guys. We will be shooting call to index HTML. This index HTML will be added with automatically this particular script code, index.js. Index.js will basically search document.getElement by ID. The root div will be searched. And under that root div, what will be called and shown is whatever given by home. If home is a function, home function is called. If home is a class, object created and some function is called. And whatever home returns you, that is welcome to home page, that is what will be shown on a screen. Now please try to understand and see this. Can I put a breakpoint? So yes, I'm going to put a breakpoint over here just to help you understand. Debugger. I'll also place a breakpoint over here. Debugger. And in the index.js, there is nothing to add a breakpoint because we are not importing script file over here. But then how giving call to index.html bring other files in picture like home.js and index.js. So hold on for a minute. Okay, because this is not the final output. Okay, so what is it that happens internally, guys? This index.html is half baked as of now. It's half done. Okay, so how do I make this full then? And how do I shoot a call? So just like yesterday, application or server was running called as live server. So we all were shooting call to a live server and we all were getting some sort of HTML file on the browser. And HTML file had a dependency on some JS file. So JS files were also getting downloaded on the browser. So that's the reason you will find out I need first of all some server. And this time I will not use something which is called as live server. And for that matter, let us do one thing. Let us go back to the console and start running the application. How do I start running the application? So there are a lot many things involved. Okay, have a look. npm start, that's the command. Okay, I'll be using npm start. This command will eventually do certain things. It will actually start a server. It will package everything. It will complete the half-baked code for us and then shoot a call to that index.html via browser as well, which means almost everything will be done by npm start now. Have a look what happens behind the scene. Let me shoot a call now. Okay, please have a look. Enter. Now wait. Okay, let's wait and see what happens here. It starts a development server. Okay, it starts a development server and have a look now what happens behind the scene. Here we go. So we have something which is welcome to homepage written on a screen, and try to understand this what is happening behind the scene. Right click, inspect, have a look. So there is a HTML page. That HTML page has got body, a div id equal to root, and this page also has got welcome to home written. Who gave us this particular UI? Welcome to home. This UI was given by home function as of now. Okay, home function, and that is injected into div id equal to root. Now the concern is how is this div id equal to root is injected with this home functions output. Who basically tried to give us the JavaScript file? I mean JavaScript code. Does it look like there is a JavaScript here? At least not in the body. Now please try understanding head over here. Under the head, there is a file given call, I mean file called a file named as bundle.js. And now if you recall yesterday's session, we discussed about like packaging multiple JavaScript files together and creating a bundle.js file out of it, which means we can avoid multiple calls to multiple JavaScript files on server side. We can club multiple files and create one file out of it, and the file name can be bundle.js. So try to understand what is there in bundle.js. Okay. If I just try, go to network window, you will understand this. Try go to network. Okay. And let us plan to understand out here. Okay. What happens here? Let me run, refresh. Okay. So under the bundle.js, what is added? Under the bundle.js, there is a index.js already. Under the bundle.js, there is already index.js. So hence index.js is called. And now you can see on the left hand side. Let me also show you one more thing. Okay. Let me help you understand. I'll go to code and deliberately, I'm saying deliberately, I'll just add some sort of style to this div. Okay. Just to show you what it looks like. I'll have a height added, maybe 300 pixel. I'll have width added, 500 pixel, and I will, or 300 pixel, and I will also have a background color added. Okay. So background color, and let's try to specify background color as in, okay, caddy blue. So this is the div that we have right now. Okay. Let's see what comes up on a screen. Go back to the browser. Let me refresh now one more time. Refresh. Observe, observe what comes on the browser now. Okay. I'll refresh again. Hold on. I'll refresh one more time. See, what did I call? I called for this page. This is index.html. I better clean this again. I called for index.html. So if I called for index.html, what comes up in an index.html? Observe. Right click, and we can right click and see the content in a minute. But then when you see, why not just continue? Okay, right click and view source. So what's there in the HTML file? There is only this basic div id equal to root, and there is a file getting downloaded, which is that bundle.js. These are the only things which are getting downloaded when I ask for index.html. Okay, look now. One more time, I'll go to network, clean, and refresh. So over the network window, what you see, index page is downloaded, and index has a reference to bundle.js. So bundle.js is also downloaded. But what is there in bundle.js? Bundle.js actually has a code from index.js clubbed with home.js. So instead of calling two different files like index.js and home.js, what you see is instead of these two files, there is one file which is created out of these two files. Call it as a bundle.js as of now. Call it as a bundle.js as of now. Now see here. What do I see? Under bundle.js, there is the index.js code. So please look at the source now. Okay. You can see on the left hand side, a blank div is already there. You can see on the left hand side, the blank div with the color is already there, which means DOM is already created. UI is already created. With respect to the UI, DOM tree is also created, which we saw in the first lecture. Now look at this. It has paused itself under sources. Where it is paused, under the bundle.js, there is the index.js, and under the index.js, what you are trying to do is step by step have a look. F10, you are saying Give me the reference of document.getElementById root. Give me the reference of that div with the cadet blue color. ID is root. So you are basically getting a reference. You are basically getting a reference of this div over here. Okay. And now you are saying the div which is empty, I need some UI to be injected inside it. And then I said a syntax home angular bracket. And if the UI is, if it is called home angular bracket, so what is checked now? Home is referred from home.js file. Then a call is basically given to home.js checking what exactly is home. Home is a function. So home round bracket way a function is called. This UI will be returned and will be injected inside this div id equal to root. Now have a look. I am calling home. See what happens if I continue. Continue. This goes to home function and home function says return h1 blah blah blah. And then this content is returned from here. And look at this now. On the left hand side, you will see this content is added inside so-called this div id equal to root. Okay. Now a question that's the Sarosh has asked. The the question is something like, what will happen if at all I shoot a call in here like this instead of this? What will happen if I shoot a call like this? Okay, will it work? Let's see. Okay, see, I've given a call like this now, home and round bracket. Okay, and then whatever home round bracket returns me, that is something which needs to be showcased. See, it works well as it is. So home round bracket or home in angular bracket, it is basically doing the same thing. But tell me one thing, what will happen? What will happen if I replace this home with a class home? Okay, I replace this home with something called as class home, and I will write down this piece of code which is return so and so. So obviously what will happen, guys, we will not be able to call this, and we can say export default. Okay, so we can simply say export default here. So export and default. What will happen now? Now you will see this is no more a normal function call. Somebody will have to create an object of home and then call this render method. Agree to that? And then definitely what will happen? I will have to replace this particular piece of code by another code wherein I will go and create a home class object and call a function called as render. So I really don't want to keep on changing anything over here. I want it should happen automatically. If it is home function, let the function be called like this. If it is home a class, let somebody else create a home class object and call a render method. So what can happen is, let us ignore this here and write down this piece of code. So it really doesn't matter now whether home is a function or home is a class. I don't have to worry about and bother about whether it's a function, whether it's a class. If it's a function, function call. If it's a class, object creation and render call is going to happen with a simple syntax like this, which is also well known as JSX syntax. Okay, and that's the reason, Sarosh, what we discussed is we will use this syntax and not home round bracket, all the time over here. Okay, and this is dynamic generation of HTML, of course, yes, because we just gave user a blank div and rest of the HTML programmatically is generated and then ultimately pushed into div id equal to root. Okay. I hope you are able to understand this so far. I'll just wait for your confirmation. There's a delay. I can see what where I am and then where you are right now. Okay, great. Okay, so now that you understand this and that solves I know the question that Sarosh has asked, let's proceed now. Okay, and now the next thing we need to understand over here, if the code inside index.js is over here, okay, why don't I see a direct code like this document.getElementById and root? Why do I see a wrapper around this? called as react dom dot create root. Why do I see a code like this over here? What exactly this line adds as a value over here? That's what we need to understand now. So, see, so far the understanding would be, your understanding would be something like we are getting a reference of div id equal to root, just like we did yesterday in our code, our SP application. And just like we were calling home function, somebody is calling home function over here. And whatsoever home is returning, we are adding inside this div id equal to root. That is what we are telling right now. That is what our assumption is. Nope, this is not what is happening behind the scene. You will see this div id equal to root that we have, there is much more happening in here. What is it that is happening? Let me help you understand this. Okay, let me one more time run the piece of code. Okay, here we go. Refresh. Let me clean the network window and refresh. So we are we paused, okay, execution over here. And if we pause this execution, plan to understand what is it that is done so far. What do you see on a screen? What is done so far? So you can see yourself something like, so far a div is plotted on a screen. Okay, so far a div is plotted on a screen. When div is plotted on a screen with the color combination, the rest of the part is yet to come. Okay, the rest of the part is yet to come, but div is definitely there. Have a look now. Go to go to let's say a whiteboard now. Okay, let me start sharing the whiteboard. Have a look here. Here we go. Okay, so look on the whiteboard now. Here we go. So what is happening on the UI side? Let me copy some piece of code here. So this index.html is what is given, okay, to the end user or to the browser. This is what is given. I'll plan to maybe take it on the same line so that it becomes easy to understand. Here we are. So what is happening is this HTML is what is given to the browser. And then based on that, what you and me are seeing right now is, I really need to pick up a color. And the color that you see is, I guess, cadet blue or something, but I'll just try to highlight it like this. Yeah. So let's say this is the div which is created, okay? I'll highlight it like this one more time. So this is what you and me see right now. So this is the div and this is the structure. So what is happening behind the scene? Since this basic div is ready, you know, if this basic div is ready, highlight it here. This is the div, by the way. Okay, this is the div that we have. So what's happening now? You know that based on all the HTML tags, there is going to be one, what you say, one object per tag is created. You know that is called DOM tree. So far, if you see, there are objects already constructed in the memory. Okay, so there is already object created, something like new HTML element, inside that HTML written for HTML tag HTML. Similar manner, this is, I can say, var object one equal to so and so. So there is already one object constructed, one for HTML, one for body, one for head, one for title, one for div. Okay, so there are multiple objects already created. So there is O2 for head, there is O3 for title, there is O4 specifically for body, there is going to be O5 specifically for div. Okay, and then there is a hierarchy that you know. The entire thing lies in a hierarchy. So you can see uh, it's more like this. There is object hierarchy constructed right now. This is DOM tree, by the way. Okay, this is DOM tree. Okay, and then there is a hierarchy constructed more like this. So hierarchy wise, it would be something like there is a O1, yani HTML object. O1 has something which is called as O2. O2 has O3. Okay. There is O4 and then there is O5, which means hierarchy wise, if you see, this is the DOM tree structure. Okay, with a hazard relationship. O1 means HTML object, O2 means head object, O3 means title object, has a relationship, O4 means body object, and O5 means the div object. Okay, so this is the overall hierarchy that you know. Now, what is it that happens if this stands for a DOM tree? If this stands for a DOM tree, literally big objects, which means almost everything from HTML is taken, every attribute, everything. So with respect to div itself, there will be ID. I mean, this O5 object has got ID, O5 object has got style, O5 object has got this, that, so and so. A big object hierarchy is basically created out here. This is the big object hierarchy, you can say. Okay. Let's send it to the backward. Okay, rather take this here and put this. Okay, it doesn't work that way. Okay, so I'll just try to highlight this. Send it backward. Does it work? Nope. It doesn't matter. Chalo. So this is the DOM hierarchy or DOM tree which is constructed right now. Now, why am I discussing this? When you see this UI created, we are at this line, okay? We are at this line number 4 right now. So at line number 4 in index.js, while it is getting executed, we haven't done anything in React. But then what happens over here is at this line or before this line, you need to understand one thing. Div is plotted with the color means what? There is already DOM tree hierarchy in place. If you see, this is already in place, this DOM tree hierarchy. Now, why should I bother about it? Why should I consider this? The reason, what you are trying to say over here is you are trying to say react dom dot create root and document dot give get element by id equal to root. When you are saying this statement somewhere, let me paste this statement somewhere over here. So when in index.js, let me put it over here. When inside index.js, you are saying this statement, okay? This is inside index.js. This is inside index.js. Yeah. So while this file is getting executed, what you are trying to say? You are trying to say react dom.create root. You are not saying document.getElement by id, because document.getElement by id will give you what? Document.getElement by id will give you this O5. We are not asking for O5. Keep it in mind. We are not asking for O5. We are asking for something different. What is that different thing? Here is interesting fact about React. What happens when this hierarchy is already constructed? So in the project, On the browser side, there is already one file available in that bundle.js. That bundle.js already has got one thing available. So you need to understand, you did not only download bundle.js for index. You see that, let me highlight it here, send it to backward. Here, this is not the only thing you have, index.js. There is also one more thing. There is something like react.js. What else you have? You also have React DOM.js. You also have over here that other file which is home.js that you created, and blah blah.js. Okay, so you can say blah blah.js, star.js files. So star.js, okay, multiple JS file. So huge amount of JS files clubbed together is what is basically offered to you when you downloaded the what you call bundle.js, and this is bundle.js. So you can say this is bundle.js. So bundle.js. Okay. And this bundle.js basically has all of this. Okay. So bundle.js. Now, what is the understanding that I want you to have? Because of this bundle.js download, what happens? There is already one file we discussed, and that file is this, guys. Okay, these things which we discussed. Send it to backward again. Yeah. So these files that we have, okay, I guess I did not highlight it. Hmm. So this react.js, react.js and react.dom.js files that you see, what is it that these files are capable of? These files are going to do one thing. These files, okay, these react dom, maybe I should highlight it like this. Okay. So these files together, what these files do is they will replicate. Okay. So internally create a replica, a lightweight replica, I should say, of DOM tree. Okay. So internally what happens is there is a lightweight replica of a DOM objects going to get created. Means if you copy paste it here, okay, if you copy paste it over here, so there is a lightweight replica created of a DOM. So this is lightweight. Maybe I can just say, highlight this as heavyweight, bold, and this is lightweight. When I say lightweight, what does it mean? Consider one example. If there is C++, Java, .NET, you will find out there can be something like, let's say, suppose one object which has got several number of members. Suppose one object has got 100 members. Okay, one object has got 100 members. And how these objects are created, by the way, if div is an object or div is a tag, for that tag there is object constructed. That object has got .id, .style, .name, .this, .that, members. When you say lightweight replica, there is something which happens. There is a calculation done. How many properties of a div do you very frequently change? So if div as a tag has 100 attributes, means div as an object has got 100 members. How many members do you change very often? Maybe only 10. So what happens? There is a replica created of a div with only those 10 members, which means if div object with 100 members exist in a DOM tree, there is a replica created which is called as lightweight DOM tree, and under that this lightweight div object will hold only 10 properties or 10 members. So big object div, actual DOM tree object, holds 100 suppose members. So the lightweight object of a div will hold maybe only 10 members. Obviously based on top of fact How many members do you change frequently? And then this lightweight replica of a DOM tree is also known as, okay, this lightweight replica is also known as, I'll highlight this here. Let me edit. Can I edit? I guess it's locked. Unlock this. No. Lock this. Okay. Also known as, and this is also known as something which is called as virtual DOM. Okay, virtual DOM tree. We call it as virtual DOM tree. Okay, so a lightweight replica of a DOM is actually called as virtual DOM tree out here. So if this was DOM tree, now this is a replica of a DOM tree, is what you can say. This is the replica. Okay, so if actual div has got 100 members, the lightweight replica may hold minimum amount of members, is what we can say. Okay? Yeah, I'll just highlight this. Yeah. So what happens out here now? Now there's a virtual DOM tree. Why do I need this, what you call as virtual DOM tree? Why are we making things complex? You will understand it. React works on virtual DOM. React doesn't work on actual DOM directly. So look at the statement. Where was this statement written? This statement was written inside index.js. Okay. So if you look at the fact right now, this is what you are seeing right now on a screen. Okay. You see blank UI and you see this colorful div as of now. What has happened? As I said, this colorful UI that you see, so there are certain things which have already happened behind the scene. What has happened? HTML came in here, UI was plotted, these objects are created, which you see. There's a DOM created, React JS is there, React DOM.js is there in the bundle.js, that is also downloaded. Then React internally constructed a replica of a DOM. All of this has just happened already. All has happened. And now there's a statement which is getting called over here under the index.js, this statement. Document.getElement by ID. I mean this statement now that you see highlighted. What is happening behind the scene here? Document.getElement by ID and root. So you are not basically asking for the reference of a DOM tree member, which is div object. You are asking for a reference of this guy, this O5 on the virtual DOM tree. So basically what you are asking is, okay, what you are asking is, you are asking for, okay, virtual DOM tree, or you are asking for something like div object inside a virtual DOM tree over here. So you are going to ask over here, get me the reference of object inside a virtual DOM tree. And then that is something you are trying to hold in a variable. Okay. And what was that variable? That variable is a root over here. So you are holding it in a root. Let me create a text here. Here we go. So you are holding it in a root now, constant root. Which means this is our starting point, okay? Which means every manipulation you want to start from this particular virtual DOM. So what is it that is happening? A lot many things. You got the HTML. What is that is happening is you got the HTML. You have a DOM tree constructed out here. There is a replica constructed here. Then you are going to run index.js. Index.js is basically getting you the reference of DOM tree based object, which is div id equal to root, which means replica of this div is something which you are basically asking for. Now let us try to understand what else is there in the code. Go back here. So you are basically holding a reference of that virtual DOM tree based object. Now what is the next statement you are doing? Next statement you are going to go and say over here, get me the UI from home. Get me the UI from home. Obviously home.js has got this return blah 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 kind of a code written. Okay, this return blah blah kind of a code written. So what is it that is going to one happen now? You are basically, okay, you have this reference. Now let us add something in this particular object. So let us update this, okay, virtual DOM tree based object first. That's what React does. How? So what did you say in the next statement? You said something which is React root render and home. You said this. Okay. Next line. Okay. Look for next line. Look at next line. And what's the next line now? The next line is root dot render. Okay. Next line is root dot render. And now please try to understand what is happening behind the scene. Home basically gives you this home that you have gives you some UI. Okay. This home gives you some UI. What is the UI given by home? Home gives you that welcome to blah blah thing. Okay. So home gives you this UI, which is h1 and welcome to so and so. So let's add a text here again. Okay. So this h1 is what is given by this guy right now. Here we go. So this is given by the this is the UI given by something which is called as your home.js file. Okay. So from the home.js file, let's again add a text. So from home.js, okay, home function is called, and we get h1 like this. Okay. So once we have this h1 now available, once we have this h1 available here, so once we have this h1 available, what do we do with this h1? What do I do with this particular markup? So like I said, what happens? All the changes will be done into virtual DOM first, right? So now there is one more correction to the statement. What is it that React does now? This virtual DOM that you see, okay, this virtual DOM that you see, internally what React does is only for this current change, whenever change is expected, only for this current change, what React does is React creates another replica of a virtual DOM. Okay, so this also creates virtual DOM's replica now. Okay, create one more, okay, small time lightweight replica, or one small time replica of, okay, lightweight DOM tree. So there is another replica constructed internally. Okay, this is time being replica. Okay, this is just temporary replica. So this is temporary replica. So temporary VDOM replica. This is only for our understanding. Okay, so here is another replica constructed internally. I'll again send it to back. This is the overall situation. Okay, now please try to understand. This is basically, it's DOM tree is a question from Sarosh is, will it create only what you called as tree or objects starting from something which is called as your what you called DOM tree. I mean the entire DOM. So DOM tree is completely constructed. There is a replica constructed for DOM tree, but we are going to go and start manipulating only from the div id equal to root. Okay, so it's like we are going to consider manipulation from div id equal to root. Now plan to see this. What is happening here? Now there are three things which are in memory. One is DOM, one is virtual DOM, and one is a temporary DOM tree which is constructed. Okay, one is temporary DOM which is constructed. What is it? Why are we doing this? Please have a look. What did we do over here? I said after the execution of this home, we already have welcome to home page here, right? So this welcome to home page needs to be added. What was the line written here? Root dot render was the line. The line was root dot render over here. Okay, this was the line. If you see root dot render means what? Whatever home has given us, put it inside a root. Root means we are referring this, kind of this guy, a div inside what you call virtual DOM. But then what it internally does is, instead of it updating the div in a virtual DOM, what it does is this addition, understand this, this addition actually happens inside this guy over here. Okay, this is what you called as invalidated and changed. So change here or add here, add here. Okay, add here. So this particular change is actually added over here is what you need to understand. Now what is it that you see under the temporary replica? You will suddenly see there is an extra object added now. Under this, what you see, there is an extra object added now. And what is that object now? Maybe O6 extra added, and that is H1 kind of a code is what you see. Okay, this is extra, by the way. This is extra added object which you see. This is extra added. Okay, this is newly added, I would say. Okay, newly added. Now if this object is newly added, what is it that happens? This is the change which we have done. Okay, and now what is it that happens is between these two guys, okay, between these two, what you call it as guys, internally, highlight this till here. Most probably I'll just try to send it to back again. Okay, and most probably I will try to outline this with some color. Okay, highlight this here. So what is it that happens now between these two guys? I should again, take this maybe somewhere over here. Can I just, yeah, maybe I should again take this little bit here and this also a little bit. Hmm. Have a look now. So what has happens is, in this particular case, this particular guy, after doing an addition into this temporary virtual DOM replica, what happens internally is, now we have two copies of virtual DOM. One is first copy of a virtual DOM and one is a temporary replica of a virtual DOM. Now in between these two guys, there will be comparison which will be happening. Okay, so this is a comparison which will happen internally over here. So between these two guys, there will be comparison which will happen. Compare, okay, and calculate a difference. Compare changes, okay, calculate the difference, calculate difference, and decide over here, and decide minimum changes needed in actual DOM. Okay, so you will find out it actually works on a step-by-step process. I'll just highlight this. Better we go and maybe try to make a small change here. I'll try to avoid the underline part of it. Okay, and then I'll just try to highlight this step number 1, 2, 3, 4 out here. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 is going to happen over here. If you see, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is what will be happening internally. Highlight this now. No, doesn't look good. Maybe better is this shape only. Yeah, here we go. So all of these changes that you see, these things are internally going to go on make some sense. Okay, so I'll just try to highlight it here. Here we go. So overall idea is these things, these stages that you go to, you will find out these things are going to one happen, that there is a comparison between this first copy of a virtual DOM and a temporary replica of a virtual DOM. This comparison will happen, and then the changes are calculated, that how many minimum amount of changes are supposed to be expected in the final DOM. The calculation is done, and accordingly what happens now, please understand, accordingly what happens is this is newly added h1 is expected. Okay, this newly added h1 which is there, this newly added h1 related change is done in the DOM. Now have a look. The next thing which happens over here is there is extra object added in the DOM now over here. Okay, now decide the minimum changes required in the DOM. Okay, then do the changes in the DOM, changes in DOM, and then actual DOM, actual DOM. And once the actual changes are done, finally, what happens is once the DOM tree is updated, you will find out virtual DOM is a lightweight replica of an actual DOM. Virtual DOM is a replica or the lightweight replica of an actual DOM. So what happens now? Now later on, this happens first, and then you will find out this virtual DOM that you see will be added, okay, with O6 added later here. Okay, added afterwards, after the DOM. So what is it that happens internally now? You will see that, sorry, after the DOM updations are done, then this particular virtual DOM will be added or updated. Now both are balanced. If you see, both the DOMs are basically balanced. The main DOM is updated with O6, and then what you see is now virtual DOM replica is also balanced as a replica of virtual DOM, as a virtual rather replica of a main DOM. And now what happens is these guys are going to get deleted now. So what will be deleted now? If I highlight this, now this will be deleted. Let's pick this here in terms of thickness. Let's pick the color. Now this will be destroyed after that. This thing that you see, this will be removed from a memory. Okay, afterwards. So what did I say? Do the changes in the DOM. Sixth one, make the virtual DOM copy 1, adopt the changes. Okay, and then seventh, delete the temporary replica. Okay, of virtual DOM. Okay, this is what happens internally when kind of a changes happen. It looks very simple from the initial what you call it as diagrams and or initial discussions, or when you try to understand React. So what happens behind the scene? You received a HTML. There is a DOM constructed in short. Now, since DOM is constructed, now there is already React and React DOM JS in picture. That creates a replica called as virtual DOM, which is lightweight replica, you can say. Then the next thing which happens is you are going to go and say, get me the reference of that div ID equal to root. Virtual DOM's replica is virtual DOM root object is what reference you asked for. Next thing you said, okay, let's get the UI from home. You get the UI from home, which is h1. Then there is another replica of a virtual DOM created in memory temporarily, that is updated with that O6 new object, h1 object. Then the virtual DOM and a temporary replica is kind of compared. It's called diff algorithm. The comparison happens via diff algorithm. I said compare using diff algorithm. Using diff algorithm. There's an algorithm which basically React uses. Okay, so diff algorithm, And based on that algorithm, it is calculated that what exactly is a minimum change required. And based on that minimum change, actual DOM is updated first. Then the changes are opted into something which is called as virtual DOM. And then the copy which is temporary, which is going to get deleted if you see. Okay. So you will find out this is what is happening behind the scene in case of React. Are we are getting this, guys? I know this is a lot, but then you will find out all of this is happening in this small scenario. Okay. And in the code, in here, what happens is if I just go to home now, you can see I can just get rid of this code for a minute. I just undo this. Here is the situation. Refresh. Look at this. Refresh. You already have DOM and virtual DOM in memory at the moment. Next, you said give me the virtual DOM's root reference. You already have a temporary replica at the moment. You are saying update the replica of a virtual DOM with home content. Then you are saying update the main DOM with the changes. The changes, see, the changes are taken, the changes are updated. Go here. Sorry, I should say refresh. Do I have a refresh and yeah, all done. Here we go. Go get the references, continue, and you can see this gets updated. When you see these changes are there in the screen, you will immediately notice what happens is now the temporary replica is gone, and what you see is virtual DOM and main DOM are balanced now. Virtual DOM is an exact lightweight replica of a main DOM. At this moment, same situation. Okay. This is the overall thing which is happening at the background in case of React. React, obviously, it consumes a memory because, of the replica and because of the replica of a replica. And then obviously React consumes memory. But then because of the diff algorithm, you'll find out updates are so fast, and updates are basically only done with respect to the specific place, specific locations, which basically are expected. So overall idea is React updation wise is super fast. Okay, but what is happening behind the scene is what we saw on the whiteboard as of now, just now. So whatever we saw, I'm just going to go and export this and store it somewhere here. Store it maybe as an image as well. So let me update. These are small changes which we have, guys, but you need to have an understanding about it. What is happening behind the scenes? Okay. Did you understand this? I know diagrammatically it may be small in terms of if at all you are watching it over mobile, but then I insist that you should start using desktop machine or laptop to understand the diagrams. Are we clear till now? No, you cannot say that, Prithvi. Okay. I mean, for the sake of saying, you can say anything, but then you know what basically, index.js is nothing which is called as actual DOM. Index.js is just our application's entry point. Okay. Index.js is just our application's entry point, nothing else. So, if this is clear to some extent, now will this matter to you and me at the moment? May not be, because this is happening internally. Okay, all this is happening internally. But then you need to have an understanding of this, because in interviews, in case you appear for React, then if you are already experienced to some extent, maybe in Angular, maybe in some JavaScript framework, and if you appear for an interview, then how the changes in case of React basically happens, how React is basically faster, yeah, how React is better is what can be asked. React is better because it works on virtual DOM. React is faster because it only manipulates those elements which are expected to change. It does not go and recreate entire DOM. Okay. How it is different than Angular? In Angular, somewhat similar things exist, but then in Angular, instead of calling it as a virtual DOM, we'll call it as a shadow DOM. That's a different theory altogether. Okay. In the same interview as that of React, people will never ask you questions about Angular. But then just for the sake of saying, if at all somebody knows Angular, somebody knows React, you can always go and compare a virtual DOM with shadow DOM as a concept. To some extent similar concept, but a thin difference lies which you can evaluate yourself. But then this theory is important in order to understand something which is called as how React works. Taking it to the next level now. Okay, now that we understand how what you call it as functions. This is function component returning the UI. Okay. And now I want you to understand how class component works. Okay. So this was function component. Now let us proceed with the class component over here. One of the important thing in case of React, if you write a class like this, one of the compulsory thing is you must inherit from. For inheritance, you need to use extends keyword. You must inherit from component class, and the component class actually comes from React.js. Okay, the component class actually comes from React.js. And now have a look. Component From component you get a method. You are actually overriding this method called as render, and you are writing some piece of code which is this. Okay, do I have to create a home class object and then call a render method? Absolutely no, because we already have added a code over here, angular bracket home. What does this mean? This means if home is a function, call it. If it is something which is called as home angular bracket, if your home is a class, we'll simply call it and call a render method in that case. Okay. We'll come back to that point. There's a question from Lucifer, I mean the ID Lucifer, that what is a React fibers and so and so. We'll come back to that point. I'll explain. So we have here home angular bracket. So home is a function, call it. Home is a class, create object and call render method. Have a look now. What happens over here again? Please understand this. Refresh. F12 refresh. Okay, here we go. Create root. Home. Now whether home is a function or home is a class. Does it matter? Nope. Continue. Look at this. Where are we now? Now we are inside a class, a render method, and this inside render method, if you see. So what happens out here is something which is what you call home class object must be created now. And from that class object, what is getting called is render. And now we have this reply given, and that appears over here. See now, whether it was a function or whether it was a class, doesn't matter. This works well. Okay. So now coming back to the concept, I have, let's say initially we want to simply discuss class components. Okay, we want to focus on class component. There is a question from Sandeep whether class component is better or function component. Function component is always better, and we'll evaluate this via examples. But then it's a first day of React. So what we are going to want to understand is something like class component and life cycle first. Okay, so let's try to focus on this. Now, in a class component, what do you see? There's a render method which is automatically called. Now, home class comes up with the inheritance from component. Component is a base. This component class, if I say F12, component class also has got another. Let's go back to, hold on. I guess I'll go back to top. Why can't I just, okay, I'll take it to top. Hmm. Okay, it doesn't show me. I'll just try to hit here. Instead of okay, seeing it here, let's see it here. Go to home. I'll go to component F12. Yes. So, okay. So component is acting as a base over here, and other component over here. Class component is there, and that class component is inherited into something which is called as now your home class. Okay, component is a base class which is coming from, like I said, React.js. The thing is, just like any other base class, you will find out there are certain methods which are basically written in component, which we can go and eventually write a code for. More like virtual. Okay, you can see it here. We can actually go and override some methods or write down piece of code by ourselves. And what is that code? You can see it here. You can see component. Okay, before that, let me write a constructor here. Okay, so there is a constructor I'm writing. A constructor, this is useless constructor. Rather, let's not go to constructor right now. Let's make it easy. Component did mount. There is a function available. Okay, component did mount. I'll put up, you already have a debugger here. There is already a code over here. Component did update. Okay. So there are two methods I have written. Component did mount, component did update. There is a render method. These two methods are actually coming from the base right now. So we are just trying to write down a piece of code by ourselves. And just like .NET, you will find out If the methods are available in a current class, those are going to get called. If these methods are not over here, then these methods will be called internally from the component class. But what's the importance of these particular methods is what you need to understand. Let's say, so in a home class, I just have returned hard-coded UI, okay? I am not interested in returning hard-coded UI. I am really interested in having some sort of UI along with some sort of data, okay? Some sort of variable with the data to be shown. So normally, if a variable value is about to change and that variable value is bound with the UI, so programmatically, if the variable value changes, if you wish to go and change the UI as well, you have an option, okay? You have an option. Let me go to continue, start sharing the screen. There you go. So what is it that is expected now? I just have written some sort of functions over here, which basically are from the base. And what I'm supposed to do now is whenever some sort of, some sort of variable holds the data. For example, let's hold the data over here. So if I have a v equal to 10, suppose, and if I plan to showcase that v inside this h1, and maybe on some button click, if I change v's value, I want the UI which is holding that v's value to change, update itself. But then keep it in mind, updating a UI is not as easy as it looks in case of normal JavaScript. Reason is very simple. React is not working on actual DOM. React is actually working on virtual DOM, if you see. So when I click on a button, there will be another there is one more time, temporary replica created. The changes will happen in temporary replica first. Then there is a diff algorithm. Then the final output is calculated. Then the DOM is updated. And then the according changes will be done in case of virtual DOM. And finally, the temporary DOM will be deleted. This is the big circle. This is a big process, if you see. So what happens? React must be careful about a fact when to update a UI and when not to update the UI. And to do so, React has some sort of what you call as rules. In case you wish to have a data bound UI, in case you wish to have a data bound UI, suggestion is do not use values directly like v equal to 10. What you should do is this. You should basically hold a variable called state. Okay, there's a state variable, which definitely is a state variable which is coming from the base. Okay, we're just trying to write down some code inside it. I mean, variable is coming from the base, we're just adding values into it. Okay, so state as a variable, and what state basically has, state is the one which can hold variable values, key value pair. Basically it's like a JSON object. So you can just hold over here, okay, name, and name has a value like, let's say, suppose I'll put a value like suppose test. Okay, so a state variable which is an object internally, and then that object has got key called as name, a value called as test. What do I do with this test state variable? I wish to show over here welcome to home page, and I really wish to showcase this content. I wish to showcase content like this return statement. Since there is going to be multiple number of lines now, I wish to go and maybe have here maybe blank tags, maybe h1 or maybe div, another div here, maybe another div over here, and in between I plan to showcase this welcome to home page, or name is, and then I want to showcase now the value which is there for name. Now this name basically can be accessed by state.name. And then since it's a class, just like in C Sharp, just like in CPP, you start using this keyword. I would say this dot state dot name. Okay, so I would say name is, and within this HTML like UI, this is not HTML by the way. Yeah? It is 99% looking like HTML, but behind the scene it is called as JSX. So what do you see here? Name is, and in the curly brackets, which means a placeholder. A placeholder for what? A placeholder for this dot state dot name. So I'm going to go and say this is half-baked markup completely. I mean, whenever the execution happens for render function, that time I'm going to go and say generate a div which has got a h1, name is, evaluate the value of state.name, and whatever is the value of state.name, please put it over here. That name is right now test. So name is test is what will be written here, and this entire UIV is what will be given into div id equal to root. Understand this now. Next thing I wish to have here is a button. Okay, and button, maybe I can say click me. And what I wish to do is I wish to write a function over here which is something like, okay, maybe do the change. Okay, do change round bracket and so on and so on. And under the change, what I wish to do, I want to change the value of this dot state dot name. I wish to change the value of this dot state dot name. So what is it that we need now? To change the value of this particular state variable, keep it in mind, state variable is not something which is our own, creation. State is something which is given by this guy. So the changes, any changes to happen inside a state, there is a procedure that we do. It's not something that, we will do this dot state dot name equal to. Okay. So we won't do this dot state dot, okay, name equal to change name. This is not the way we change the name. To change the name, we will use this dot set state. This is again a function which is coming from the base, by the way. Okay, so there's a function which is coming from the base, this dot set state, and then name value is assigned to a newer value called as change name right now. Why this doesn't work and why this is expected, I'll explain that within few minutes. Then you will understand it. Why this is not the case which works. Okay, I'll put it over here. Wrong way to change the state. I'll push it here and say wrong way to change the state. But then this is the correct way to change the state value. Okay, I'll explain why in a minute. But as of now, what is expected? Change function is what I wish to call over here. And what do I do now? On click equal to, and I wish to call this dot, which function? Change. So I'm just going to go and say and bind. Show me a div when a render function gets called. Show me this dot state dot names value, that is test. And whenever somebody clicks on this button, let us call this function called as change. And whenever change function gets called, instead of changing the value of a name in this way, we will change the value in this particular manner. Keep it in mind, if you change a value of a name, means you also wish to change this h1's content. If the name changes, I want h1 to update itself accordingly, because h1 shows the current name. If name changes, the UI should also change. But then if the UI changes, ultimately, just imagine what will happen if h1's value, name's value is bigger. Suppose in a name I add 100 characters or 100 lines. Just imagine if in a name, if I add maybe 100 kind of, let's say, values over here. Try to understand this. If name size is bigger, what will happen then? H1 will expand in size. As a result, div will expand in size. As a result, button will be relocated to somewhat, downside. Means one simple change in a h1 or a name will make a change in h1, will make a change in div, will make a change in button as well. Who does the calculation? Because we need to create a DOM or change the DOM accordingly. Change the DOM accordingly, but I need to calculate how many minimum objects are supposed to be changed. Leave that to that diff algorithm. So whenever you do the state change over here, what happens? When the state change happens, there is one more time. What happens is one more time, a copy of a virtual DOM is going to get created. The changes will happen in that. There is a diff algorithm which happens. Then there is a final value, final DOM object manipulations are calculated. DOM is updated, VDOM is updated, and the temporary replica is deleted. You will find out lot many things happen behind the scene, guys. Please have a look now. Why, this is important. How this is important. And let me also show you this guy, component did mount. I have deliberately put up these debugger, okay, statements over here. You will understand what these statements mean, okay? Let me show you. Run this piece of code now one more time. Have a look here. Refresh. Go to network and clean. Refresh. So I called up for, one more time, I called up for HTML. HTML is plotted on a screen. DOM tree is created. And now bundle.js is called. From the bundle.js, you will find out several files are getting called. Have a look now. Under the source, get a reference to that VDOM based root, call home. So what gets called now? Have a look. Home's render method is first time getting called. Okay. Home's render. Then in a render, you are saying, okay, show me the state.name value. What is the state.name value? It is test. So h1 will be created with the this name is so and so. Button will be created with the text called as click me. See here, done. But then when the first time UI is constructed, when the first time UI is done, when the first time UI is done, you will find out a function gets called. Which function gets called is component did mount. When the first time render happens in the life cycle of this class, the function gets called is component did mount. Okay, done. Now next, you click on a button. Value is name is test. Click on a button. You click on a button, another function should get called now, and that is this guy. Change, okay? This guy should get called. Come on. Okay, I guess I cannot hit this. Okay, let me do one thing. Let me put a debugger and certain statement over here. So in the change, I'll also put a debugger here. And deliberately, one big thing, one good thing rather. Let's write down over here console.log just to ensure that everything is good. Okay. So console.log render method called. Here I'll write down console.log change method called. Okay. Console.log component did update called. And here I'll say console.log component did mount called. Okay. Deliberately I'm doing this. Please have a look now. And maybe inside the index.js, okay, I can say something like console.log index.js file is getting executed. Okay. Now I may say over here console.log, okay, before calling the render method, or I should say, okay, now DOM tree, okay, virtual DOM tree, okay, virtual DOM tree is ready. Virtual DOM tree, and I should say something which is called as the temporary replica. Not now, because once we have a UI and once we try to update, then only the temporary will be updated. So I could say here now DOM tree virtual DOM tree is ready. Next, okay, root.render when happens. Okay, so I can just say console.log rendering home component, and in turn creating updating / updating the what you call virtual DOM tree. So I can say temporary replica of virtual DOM tree. Okay. Yes, absolutely, Sarosh. Every time we make a change, there is a temporary replica which gets created. Absolutely. Now have a look, everyone. Clean, refresh. There you go. So far, what has happened? Nothing. So we are here. Index.js is getting executed. Okay. Console pay. What is the case? Index.js is getting executed. DOM tree, virtual DOM tree is ready. Render, is basically creating a temporary replica right now and then updating the temporary replica. Render method is called right now. You can see it here. We are inside render right now. I can just clean this for a minute. So under the render, we have this UI constructed now. After the UI constructed, we go to a method called as component did mount. And this method gets called only once. Okay. So this method sequentially is going to get called. One of the first method after render. This gets called first time and one time only in the life cycle of component. This is done. We have a code. Look at the output over here. Component did mount called. Okay, maybe I should again. I just want to show you a couple of methods, nothing else. Okay, render method is called. Let's continue. You can see it here. Last two are important for us. So there is a render called And after render, what gets called is component mount is called. Okay, we are done with this. Now check clean. What happens now? Now I'll click on a button. If I click on a button, you are calling change. Click here. So you are calling change. And when change is called, change is basically changing the state name. And you know, name is being used inside this particular H1. So if name is used over here, so changing name should also change H1 in picture. Changing name should also change name over here. And then what is it that we need to do now? Here, after this is done, see, since the change happens, see what happens here. You call change, you continue. This will, what's the wrong? Cannot read properties of this dot set state. Okay, I guess I made some mistake here. Hold on. This dot set state I called. Um, this dot set state name is equal to name was what? Name and test. Okay, name colon. Yep, I guess that should be it. Okay, let's see. Did I? Okay, let's see. Set state and in the content name and change name. Yeah, that was the case. Correct way. Let's see. I hope I've written the correct component class. Continue, continue, continue. Click over here. Okay, something wrong. And this dot set state home extends component. Component is extended. React is there. All seems correct as of now. Okay, let's see. I just try to put here f name. I guess I got the point here. F name, f name. Let's see. Let's see. Hmm. Nope. Read this dot set state. No, no, no. There is no point. Callback is something which we can use later on. This is not the concern. Why name did not work? Okay, let me see. Hold on. Huh? Let me check. Name and change name. This dot sets name string and value or any. Yep, state equal to any. This dot sets. Okay, okay, okay. I guess I got the point. We should accept a complete object. Yep. Hold on. Huh? Let me check if we missed anything out here. I don't think we missed anything. Callback is absolutely not needed. No, I'll not go here. This dot set state. Yep, this is correct. Why it did not work? Let's see. So there is a this dot set state may we have a curly bracket, key and a value. And state is basically created as what? Yeah, all good. This is surprising that set state is not working. Okay, this dot set state equal to curly bracket and user. Yep, let's check. Mm, 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 mm. Okay, curly bracket greetings and so and so and assets say greeting. Yep, absolutely okay. This is this dot state equal to okay. While creating itself, I guess it is this dot state. Yep, here it is. Made that mistake. No, and was it colon? Nope. Let's see. Okay, this is not expected over here. Is it a constructor and anything else? Use this dot state instead of state. Yep, I have used state. This dot set state, this dot state, this dot set state, and yeah, but this is not allowing me to use this dot state. Okay, this dot state doesn't work. A parsing error constructor was acha. Okay, so it says constructor is expected. Let's say constructor, but this will be useless constructor if we do so. Not expected in here. Should work. Okay. Okay. Let's see. If at all I just try to utilize one more content, I'll just say CC over here. Yep. State equal to it is. There is no change. Definitely no. It is supposed to be state equal to. Did we import everything properly? I have a doubt in that. Yep. Name colon so and so. Hold on. Okay. Let's see. Let's say constructor, and inside a constructor we'll try. How does it matter? This dot state equal to, okay, this dot state. Let's see if it works now. Although it is redundant, but then this should not make any kind of a worry. Let's go back to the code now, demo SPM, and see if it works. Continue. I go to home. I'll put a debugger here. I doubt that this is correct. Yep, under the constructor only. Nope. It is going to go in a loop, nothing else. This is not how we define the state, by the way. What mistake did we do? I am still not collecting it. Name is equal to, okay, let's see. Let's do one thing. I'll just try to, yeah, extends React component only. We have imported React component, nothing else. Okay, let me see. Hold on for a minute. Let's use a template here and see from the scratch. Have a look, huh? Okay. I'll use CC class component. Let's call it as home. Okay, home. This is going to be name variable, name or f name. I'll just say f name, Mahesh, or test. What was the name? Home. Escape. Right here, f name colon test. In here, instead of a div empty container, we can say this is or f name. This dot state dot f name. A button over here. Click me. We may have missed something, but we need to check. And we may wish to keep on calling a function now. Okay. So let's keep on calling a function which is do change. Okay, change. Okay, change can be a code like this. I can say set state. Okay, I believe I missed this. Component should be coming from React, and I should do this dot set state f name equal to change name. Okay, all seems good. Change is the function that I wish to call. I should say this dot change. Okay, and the couple of functions that we talked about. Okay, the function name is component did mount. Okay, the component did update. and here I should write down render method called. This is the overall okay change. Let's see what happens now in here. Clean the network, clean here. Okay, so we have a component mount called. We are done with the test. Okay, F name is test. Click on a button. Should have gone for it. It worked. What is the change that we did compared to this? I would just change it to instead of name. Only the change I see is name and this much only. What is the change that we did here? Let me see. Let me evaluate. Okay. F12. The console is clean. Hmm? And now click over here. This changes to change name. Works well. Change name called render called component update called. Okay. Yeah. So state dot name is used. So what is the change we did here? Let's see. State equal to name colon test. What was earlier? State equal to name colon test. Exactly same thing. Yeah. It worked. So there is no such, no need to have a suggestions now. State equal to name and test and state equal to name colon test. Okay, great. We tried to showcase this. Okay, it was working anyway before, but only on a button click, I said this dot set state and the name colon, and this was set state name and colon. Yep, this is exactly same thing. If you see, copy and paste here, it's exactly same thing what we tried earlier. The previous code state equal to so and so, the same code is over here. What is the change? Hmm. That won't matter. The change method, guys. Okay. I guess yes. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yes, the change method basically we made the small change here. Change is basically out here. Change is eventually a arrow method that we have written, and in here a change method was written like a normal method. Now I'll tell you exactly what went wrong over here. Okay, so when we use this change method in this particular manner, okay, thankfully I remember the issue now. So the change method which was written in this manner, let me show you that as well. Have a look here. If I just do something like this, okay, for a minute, you will also understand one more concept: change, round bracket, and curly bracket. I'll tell you the change, why it failed over here. It's a JavaScript concept which basically made this fail. So initially test is shown, okay. Click on a button, continue, click on a button. So see, the change was getting called. The change was getting called. The issue was over here. I made a mistake by writing change function in this manner. And what's the issue? If you see this dot set state, look at what this stands for. What this should stand for, you tell me. Before I show you, you tell me what this should stand for in this scenario. What the this should stand for. Which kind of a class, object or class or current class object it should stand for, right everyone? When I say this, it should stand for the current class object. Agree? Have a look what this stands for here. Carry a cursor. This is undefined. Okay. This comes up as undefined over here. And then because we are writing a class, we are writing a function inside it. But when and because of this undefined thing, set state does not appear and it fails. Now instead of change to be written like this, write it more like this and have a look what this stands for now. Refresh, continue, click. Now carry a cursor, it's an arrow function, and then you carry a cursor over here. Now this stands for a home class object, if you see. Okay. So the reason behind this is there is a concept which is eventually called as, there is a function called as bind. Okay. The if you see there is a object creation syntax which is called as literal syntax. We saw three different ways of creating objects in JavaScript. One is literal, other one is the constructor function, and the third one is a class syntax. Okay, so internally what happens is this will also work. The earlier code that we did, this will also work, but then we have to change the meaning of this in that case. The earlier code will also work. This code which was failing now, this code will also work. The only thing you will have to ensure to change the meaning of this. So in JavaScript, there is a function called as bind. If you've heard of this, in JavaScript, there is a function which is called as bind. So using bind, what you can do, you can change the meaning of this and make it work. Or if you are not interested using bind, there is another method called as call. There is another method called as call. So there is bind, there is call, kind of two methods available which can actually help you change the meaning of this to the current class object, that is home, or current class context, that is home. And by default, this guy, which is arrow function, does it internally. That's the reason it is working over here. So normally what happens is, in general classes, when we keep on writing in ECMA 6, we end up writing functions like this. I mean, the one which we used. Okay. But in this scenario, I used a arrow bracket syntax. So you will eventually find out what happens is, no, Anushri, that was not the case. The extended class component is absolutely correct. In short, we have imported component only in both the cases. If you see, this was earlier case and this is also a case. Okay, so the main issue is bind is function what is expected. Okay, maybe I'll explain it in maybe another demonstration, that how this thing changes bind and a call. So I'll tell you in here, if we just have to understand this. If I just go back to whiteboard, give me a minute. There's a very nice theory to it. I missed that. This is specifically very core JavaScript. I mean the concept that basically we failed at here. So in general, when you write when you end up writing classes also, so it is something like class X. Okay, and in this class X, if I end up writing was something like this, something like, let's say F1, and if I just write down some piece of code like this over here. Okay, so what happens is here this when we start writing. So in general cases, okay, in general cases, when we have a function like this, so internally what happens is you will see that this particular thing by default in case of routine JavaScript would end up representing window object. Here it is undefined right now, but this will end up representing window object over here. And then to ensure that it represents something which is called as current class X object. Okay, what we do is normally what we do is we actually end up doing something like this. We actually go for a code like this. Something like bind is a JavaScript function we use. Okay, bind is a JavaScript function, and then we can say f1 dot bind, and we can say this, and then this will give us another function. Let's hold it in some constant. Let us say something which is called as maybe changed f1 or f11, for example. This is what we will end up doing in the code. So with this line in the code, I'll just highlight this here. Okay. With this line over here, what is it that happens now internally? Send it backward. Yeah. With this line, normally what happens is you end up getting, okay, with this, you get, with this code, you get one function named as, what you named it as F11. Okay. What you named it as F11 in this case. And then what happens is you can actually end up calling now, you can end up calling now function. So you can end up calling this guy, something which is called as X object. Okay. Dot, you can keep on calling F11 over here. So when you keep on calling X object dot F11 out here, so eventually what happens out here is you will be, okay, X object dot F11. So basically what you did is you tried to make a change, you tried to ensure that F1 whenever called, inside the F1, this should present class X object. So what you did is you tried to make a small change, and instead of having F1, you made it look like, you made it as F11, wherein the meaning of this is what you are trying to change. I'll have one more example, a better example to basically explain this. Maybe, maybe in the course curriculum itself, we'll try to add on this. So just like bind as a method to change the meaning of this. So just like this bind as a method, you will see we also have few more options. So just like bind, okay, there is something called as call and apply. Okay, just like bind, there is a call and apply in JavaScript, which can help you change the meaning of this. Is there in JavaScript to change the meaning of this over here. So the original problem was this is something which was undefined, and that's is the one reason we were failing. And by default in arrow function, this is already resolved. That's the reason with arrow function it started working. Okay. So in case somebody is interested to basically go right now and maybe check, just Google, just think about apply, call and bind over here. Okay. So this concept is something which is absolutely required to understand this concept. Call, apply and bind. So we miss that part, and that is the issue that we have here. Okay. So in JavaScript, this another concept exists, but then that is something which is, at least in the current session, we may not be able to extend it further, but then we'll try to see if at all we can opt this in the curriculum. Okay. So this was the overall thing. The change of meaning of this is what was expected, and which is where we failed. Okay. So in the rush, what we did is we made a mistake. Okay. Here we go. And we'll go back to the screen now one more time. There you go. Okay, so one more time, coming back to the part here. So we have got certain changes done, and if you look at this now, guys, okay, this is the last part now of the discussion. You can see it here. Refresh. Did we do all the changes? Yes. Okay, here we go. So you run the piece of code. There is a render which happened. After render, what happened is component did mount. Look at the console. Last two are important. So first time render happened, and then there is a component did mount which happened. Okay. First time only component did mount happened. Clean this. Now you click on a button. Okay. You click on a button. Click. See suddenly what happens. You clicked. You called change. Change basically makes the changes in the state. When the changes in the state are made, the bound UI is supposed to change, which means this UI is supposed to change, which means render is supposed to be called. Automatically, when you do state change using this function, automatically a render will be called. A render will be called, and the component update will also be called. Why did not it go to the debugger? Okay, I guess I need to change that. Yeah, run again, continue, clean, click on a button, continue, continue. It is hitting Okay, there is no debugger in the render. So sorry. Look at the code now anyway. So you clicked on a button. What happened? Change method called. Next, render method gets called. And what is next? Component did update is called. So you need to understand over here that is component did update is called. Click again and check, guys. Again change render component did update. Click again one more time. Change render component did update is getting called. So the theory to understand, every other time change happens, render happens, and component update is happening. Though the data is not basically changing, okay, data is change name only. It is staying as change name only. But still you can see over here, the methods are getting called, and you can see component did update is getting called, but the uh, uh, component load or component did mount is not getting called, because this method gets called only once, okay, in the life cycle. The question is, data is not changing every time I click on a button. 10 times I click, it's the same data. But why exactly this method is getting called as component did update? Now there is a very interesting theory to it. And that part is something which we'll try to understand in tomorrow's session, first part. And then we will slowly move to something which is called as functional component as a concept. Okay. So I guess it's it's already, we are running a little late. So we can pause here and we can continue from where we are pausing right now in tomorrow's session. Okay, guys. If there are questions, please put it. If there are no questions, we are good to go. Okay. I know it was lengthy. It was too much of discussion, but I hope it was fruitful. Yeah, I'll be sharing the data on the group. Okay. Not exactly, because both the objects are there in the memory at the moment. Saurabh has a question that in general bind call are considered as a dynamic code. So not exactly, because uh, it's like A objects method are being called by B object. Okay, A objects method are called as if they are B objects method. That is the situation. But in both the case, in this case, the A object and B object both are there in the memory, right? So that way we cannot say it's a dynamic code. Both objects are there in memory. Yeah. Okay. So I guess we are good to close. Yes. Okay. So thank you everyone, and we'll close. If there are any concerns, questions, queries, put it on the group, or we'll see each other anyway tomorrow. You can ask tomorrow as well. Thank you very much. We are yet to see the wheat as a template today. We were only focusing on the CRA template, but we'll see the other template tomorrow. Thank you very much. And even if we have to extend sessions after 29th, it's absolutely okay, as long as we cover everything from the syllabus, everything that is absolutely important from the what you call as React. Okay. Yep. So attend live. So okay, thank you. I'll stop the streaming now. Thank you.